Hello, I'm Trisha Chakraborty. I'm a first-year Science and Technology Policy Fellow at the National Institute of Justice in the Department of Justice. Tonight, we're coming to you from Washington, D.C., where we're at the AAAS annual meeting. Joining me on the daily wrap-up are my fellow PhDs, Justin Lee, who is a second-year fellow at the Science and Technology Directorate at the Department of Homeland Security. We also have, joining us for a second night, Lauren Lapointe, a second-year fellow at the Foreign Agricultural Service in the USDA, and a first-year fellow, Andrew Hastings, who is at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease in the NIH. So we're here to discuss everything that is science and panel and expo and tech related. So we're going to answer all your questions, or we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. If you do have questions, just drop them into the chat box and we'll get to them, as many of them as possible. So with that, my first question is to you, Andrew, because you're squished right in next to me tonight. Justin, I'm going to do this all night where I call Justin Andrew and Andrew Justin, even though I know them both. Justin.
Yep.
Forgive me.
No problem.
And then answer my question. All right. So you are an electrical engineer, and you used to work in a little bit in AI. And today you went to a couple different lectures on AI. So can you tell us a little bit about how the field of artificial intelligence has evolved between when you were working on it and what you're seeing today at the conference?
Well, I think the biggest thing would be that AI, machine learning, whatever you're going to call it, is a lot more prevalent now. When I was working on it, it was a bit more on the stage still, where everyone thought it was a research topic. But one of the professors actually took the class with him, who everyone loves to quote, now says AI is the new electricity, which just might show you how widespread it is compared with what it used to be.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to realize like how prevalent it is in our lives without us even realizing it. So I guess this is a good place as any to get that reminder, right? All right, so moving on to a completely different topic. Lauren, you went to a talk today about the revitalization of graduate education. And I think this was an Alan Leshner lecture. So what were some of the most important questions that everyone was trying to answer at this lecture, and why were they so important?
Yeah, so Alan Leshner did a talk that basically went through the 2018 report on revitalizing graduate STEM education for the 21st century. And the first point that he made was he didn't really like the word revitalizing, because the system as it is, like the scientific enterprise, the research enterprise, is actually not broken because it's very effective, right? But he does think that it needs to be evolved. So what can we do to get there, to make it better? And one point that he made was most of the current enterprise is made it's focused on research productivity rather than giving a good education experience, a quality education experience. So you end up getting lost in that fact that PIs are trying to be productive, you're trying to be productive, and a lot of the quality education, mentoring, those kinds of things are kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah, it's so funny. I noticed that as you were saying that research productivity is really like the priority, all four or three of us were just like, yep, that's absolutely true. So yeah, things aren't broken, but they could definitely be a little better. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more in the future about exactly what that means for us. All right, Andrew, whose name I got right this time, your turn. So you are an immunologist, and you've been going to a whole bunch of talks about diseases and how we're trying to save the world from diseases. And one of them you went to, I have like a really hard ask of you. One of them that you went to was the quest for the universal flu vaccine. So it's your job to tell us, how close are we to finding that flu vaccine?
Well, I think that we're pretty close. And one of the reasons that I went to that talk was because the institute director of the institute that I work at was one of the three people giving that talk. So I kind of know a little bit more background even before I went. But we're pretty close. And I think that the main message that we have to like think about when we're talking about universal flu vaccine is that the universal flu vaccine is kind of a stepwise process. So there's a lots of different types of influenza viruses. And if we can make a stepwise step to try to get more and more and more types of viruses covered, then we will be making good progress. And I think that there's a lot of cool new vaccine platforms that give us a lot of hope for the future, that we are going to be able to, if not cover all vaccines, all influenza strains, at least cover a good portion of them and really drive down the disease burden of flu. And one of the other good things that Nancy Messonnier, who was from the CDC, made the point of, even a small increase in the vaccine coverage or the efficacy of a particular vaccine can actually translate to a large benefit to society. Tens of thousands of people can be helped by just 5% increase in the vaccine coverage or the efficacy of a vaccine.
So it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I've always wanted to know is that, when it comes to actually deploying that vaccine across all of the areas that it needs to go to, that can be a really huge challenge. So was that discussed at all? You can find the vaccine, you can get the vaccine, that's great.
Sure.
How do you send it out?
Vaccine coverage is a major part of any universal flu vaccine effort. And we talked a little bit about the availability of vaccine, particularly in more underprivileged situations. And Dr. Messonnier also mentioned that a large proportion of the children who are vaccinated are actually vaccinated through school programs. And that's kind of almost a welfare program that the United States government does to deploy these vaccines, which increases the coverage quite substantially. And the other two important factors are education to both the people who are getting the vaccine, but also education to the providers to make them know that these are important things to get, and really build trust in the medical community that these are going to help you in the future. And if you get influenza, it might not protect you, but it might make you much less sick, which is a noble goal, I think.
I agree. So on the subject of education and utilizing education to spread science, Andrew, I found out that you used to do your grad work in Antarctica.
Call me Andrew.
That's Justin again.
All right. By the end of this talk, I might get your name right.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But in the meantime,
Sure.
You will be Andrew.
That's fine.
It's not my day, you guys. Justin.
Yeah.
You did you did your grad work in Antarctica. So Antarctica is on my bucket list. It's like one of the things that I desire most to see and be at in my life. So my question to you is, what did you do there? And how did the work that you did then, and how does the work that you're learning about now through all your AI stuff, how can it apply to the research that's going on? Is that a really tough question?
It's a slightly different question.
Yeah.
So my grad research was looking more at earth science, sort of space physics related work. So there's a lot of stations down in Antarctica. So that's how I got to go down there. But AI, sort of what I was saying before and how it's changed, it applies pretty broadly, right? So all of the data that we collected is what I then used and could use for doing some AI application. But, Antarctica's a cool place.
No pun intended.
No?
Nerd.
Yeah.
I say that as a total hypocrite.
We all are.
It's true. So speaking of super international trips, I didn't go anywhere international, but this morning I did go to a breakfast for women and minorities in science. And it was really inspiring because I got to see women from Palestine, Bolivia, Nepal, Bangladesh, and the Gambia receive prizes for not only doing research that changed their countries, but overcoming amazing obstacles to do so. And, I think we're all science communicators in some way or the other. We're all here to promote the inclusion of as many people as we can in science. Lauren, I know that's definitely a priority of yours. So can you tell me a little bit about some of the other sessions that you've gone and seen, and just general ideas about what you've gotten over today and yesterday about including more people in science, whether they're women, minorities, children, literally anybody.
Yeah, I actually spent most of my day at those kinds of sessions today. So I started off at the effective mentoring in STEM education session, and there was 3 interesting talks there that basically provided, in one, an overall framework for kind of a study on mentoring and how you can ask the same questions even across various models. Then there was an example at the University of Florida. There's working to increase diversity in computer science there. And then there's also a program that's near and dear to my heart because it's at Vanderbilt and probably Andrews, the Fisk, Vanderbilt Fisk PhD program, which is actually a program to help underrepresented groups get into a PhD program that they will be successful in, because there's a lot of mentoring that is involved there, and they're actually seeing much higher numbers of completion rates and success after PhD with that program. So it's a great program, and I was actually in lab with someone in that program. So it's really great to see so many universities all over the US kind of putting this as a priority, because it has not been traditionally set up that way. So I think that, you have to get everybody the same opportunity, and everybody benefits from more diversity, more various experiences at the table, all of that kind of stuff.
Like, the more voices we have, the better our science is.
Yes.
Okay, I think we all totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So going back to voices, Andrew, you heard a very interesting voice talk about plagues and paradox of progress. I think it was, I hope I'm saying this right, Thomas Balicki.
Balicki, maybe? I'm not sure exactly, but yes. Yeah.
Afterwards too.
Yeah.
So he talked about this idea of disease states, right? And how you can evolve or advance from them. Can you recap that talk? I missed it, and I really want to know what happened.
So he actually wrote a book by the same name, and it seems like a very interesting book. I might be picking it up after the conference. But the basic premise behind it is that we've gotten really good at vaccinating some of the underprivileged world. Particularly, he focuses on sub-Saharan Africa, and preventing some of these childhood diseases that were decimating that area previously and decimating the entire world. And because of our public health efforts at preventing these childhood diseases, people are growing up to become adults, which is the ultimate goal. But because of the speed in which this rapid population growth that was not there before, the infrastructure is not there to handle and provide jobs for a lot of these children as they grow up. So I think his take-home message really was that if we continue to provide public health, and we should provide public health to underprivileged nations, that we need to make sure that we're embedding that public health outreach into a broader outreach into infrastructure and education and family planning, and also in making sure that we're addressing non-communicable diseases such as cancer, diabetes, and other diseases that are not transmissible, but that become a huge issue. And I think one interesting statistic that he talked about was that a lot of these non-communicable diseases in the US and other developed nations occur in people who are over 75 years old. But these diseases are occurring in these sub-Saharan African populations when people are in their 40s and in their 50s, which is creating a huge burden on the society. And it's really important that we kind of think about how we're addressing those as a more holistic way.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation about addressing diseases or states or problems that really affect the entire world, even though, we may only see a little corner of it in our country. The work that we do has a lot of impact in every single part of our society, culture, etc. And that, I think, speaks a little bit to reducing societal polarization. I think there was a talk about it this afternoon that both you, Justin, did it right this time, and Lauren went to. Lauren, can you tell us what it means to reduce societal polarization?
Yeah, so I think that just means maybe it's hard to actually reduce societal polarization, but coming at discussing, as one of the speakers called it, communicating politically inconvenient science with an understanding of how your audience is seeing that science. So there are several platforms. One that's called the Open Mind platform, which is basically a way of, I'm not sure how it works because I have the tab open, but I haven't gotten to play around with it yet. But the whole idea is just to do research about why a certain group feels a certain way about their ideology and coming into your discussion with that in mind, because it sort of feels like sometimes we live in two different worlds, or maybe more different worlds, but definitely, the media that you follow is directed towards, things you believe in. And really science is the unique way that we can come together because, we all should agree on the science. And maybe if you can find a way to, show how it would benefit someone else's ideology and your ideology, that would be a way to kind of bridge that gap.
And so Justin, did it right again. So I'm going to celebrate every time I do it right this time. This is very exciting for me. Justin, you were there too. And so can you talk a little bit more about what some of the practical applications might be of everything that was discussed in this talk?
Everything's a pretty broad
about the things that were really
I'll just say a few things that stuck out to me, since I don't know if I have a good grasp of everything that's going on. But some of the points, ironically, as I was thinking about this question, I was like, I had some overlap with actually the AI talk, because one of the things that got brought up was a lot of it was if I remember right, and I'm not mixing the talks, a lot of it was the context. They were saying that they had, and I forget the term, but like these camps where people would basically come and figure out the opposite viewpoints. At the end of it, everyone go away feeling like they sort of bridged the polarization. Everyone can kind of see each other's perspectives. But then they'd go back to their own original context, and their views would, it ended up being a short-term effect. They drift back to sort of what they thought before, partly because of where they're situated, which was something similar with the AI talk. But there's basically, I don't know if there's a good action point, but a lot of it was sort of concerned in terms of when the extremes dominate the viewpoint, basically, the moderate or the middle road opinions oftentimes get drowned out.
Yeah, I feel like we hear that a lot, especially in some of the professional development stuff that we go to as AAAS fellows. We really learn to, include all viewpoints in the policy decisions we make. So it's nice to know that there are other people talking about that too. I want to take a second and just go and turn to the expo. Were you guys able to step in and go tonight or this afternoon? I think you, Lauren, went, and then Justin, you went too. Yeah. So can you tell us about some of the stuff that you saw? Maybe Lauren and then Justin?
Sure. So I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time, but I did notice that there were several booths. Actually, like Japan's scientific institutions have a large presence at this expo. So I made a note to go back and interact more with them. And there was like a Korean scientists booth as well. So that's, a great way to look at what other universities and scientific institutions are doing across the world. I also noticed that there was a lot of the book booths that are like the certain publishing. I like those because they highlight all those sciencey books, and I usually end up getting one or two. And then of course the jewelry booth with the cool physics jewelry that I got one last year with 3 resistors on, a necklace with 3 resistors on it. So
there's a jewelry booth?
Yeah, I forget what her stuff is called, but it's like little tiny like electronics parts that are made into jewelry, and they're really cool.
I immediately want some now. I'm going to go tomorrow. The reason I asked this question is because I inevitably don't have time to explore as much of the exhibition booths as I can. So I try to pick out aha, that's where I'll go. Justin, what did you see?
I mostly went to see they had a robotics exhibit, expo event, which was, I hadn't actually heard of this one. I've heard of other robotics events, but ended up having, several, I think, high school kids driving their robot around, picking up balls, not, ramming at each other's robots, which is pretty fun.
Wait, is this like the game on TV where people murder other people's robots?
No. This is educational. School intent is it has more in terms of mechanics, like building robots that can pick things up. A lot of them have this neat little thing where they roll over a ball and they actually launch a little catapult that knock down this flag to score points. So it's more in the mechatronics rather than the destroy each other's robots.
You're trying
Battle bots.
What was that, Andrew?
Battle bots.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's it.
No. This was they called it Rebel Bots, which is a new one to me. But
trying not to untrademark or violate the trademarks.
Yes.
No. So BattleBots High School Edition.
Okay, less destructive and more try to achieve a goal thing.
So was it a competition? Did somebody win?
I don't think it was a full competition. I think they were doing it as a demonstration, but they had 10, 15 robots from different teams, I think, shown on booths just to see what they look like, and then they had the exhibition matches periodically.
So I was judging posters, and it was happening behind me. So I literally could not turn around. I could hear everybody yelling and getting really excited. And of course, there's that one part of you that's like, I really want to look. But that's why I have you here.
Oh, you have the minute breaks between the judging? You could
no.
Turned around really quickly?
Whiplash,
yeah.
Okay, and I guess one of the most important things that I always like to ask about is the plenary. So today's plenary featured Fabiola Giannotti, and she's the director of CERN. And she spoke about international collaboration. So I'm pretty interested in something in science diplomacy. And my big takeaway from what she was trying to say is that we can use science to build bridges across governments and across cultures. So for those of you who went, do you guys all go? I think you went, Andrew, you went, Justin. I guess Justin, Andrew, and then Justin. Dear Lord. What was the big message for you?
I think that you hit the nail on the head as far as international collaborations being important. Also, I think another message that she delivered was the importance of basic research and how research that at first, when you look at it at the current time, it might seem useless, but it ends up being really useful. Like she was talking about relativity and GPS and the development of transistors. So I think that was another important part of her message that she gave today.
Similar again to what you were saying in science diplomacy, it was nice that she pointed out how CERN, she traced a bit back about where CERN started from, after World War II, the goal for this larger collaborative unifying force. And more interesting, in my opinion, was the fact that she says that it was the inspiration or helped start Sesame, which is a similar, not particle accelerator, I don't think, but a similar scientific collaboration in the Middle East. And when you looked at the list of the countries who are participating in that, as she said during the talk, countries who politically may not be in agreement or any sort of alignment, but who are able to come together on sort of this scientific and collaborative work, despite that.
Yeah, and on that note, yesterday actually, at last night's plenary, the founders of Sesame did win a super prestigious award for the work that they've done in not only doing their science, but bringing their countries together to collaborate on their science. So yeah, international collaboration, especially on science, apparently makes the world go around. Okay, one last question I have from all of you, or for all of you, is tomorrow is the very last day, right? So what is it that you're looking forward to seeing tomorrow? I guess we'll go with Justin and then Lauren and then Andrew.
Okay. I was actually judging. I was also not judging. I was helping with the poster sessions in the morning. So I was actually just gonna, sweep through and see whatever caught my interest. There are some more AI talks again, but A lot of the other more, and even the AI talks are a lot more focused on the policy about it, but they're all pretty interesting. So we'll see what catches my eye.
All right. Lauren, what do you think?
Hopefully I don't take any of yours, Andrew, but I'm really excited for the panel. And now I'm going to have to remember titles of things, but there's a panel that's hosted by two current fellows on international innovation, using your innovation internationally. And then the final plenary tomorrow, I'm very excited about using, what is it? It's getting decision makers to listen to your science or something like that. Yeah, sounds very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, we're all policy fellows, so hopefully somebody at some point will listen to something that we say.
Someday.
And make maybe some good decisions. All right, Andrew, what do you got?
Well, I think clearly the thing that everyone is looking forward to the most is your wrap-up, Tricia. Your final wrap-up. Yeah. But also there's a panel called The Silence of the Frogs, and they're going to be talking about kind of the issue of chytrid fungus in amphibians and how that's affecting frogs, which are a huge part of the ecosystems basically everywhere. So I think that's going to be pretty cool scientific-wise. There's also I think there's a virus panel that I'm interested in going to because I love viruses.
You are a microbiologist, right?
Yeah, microbiologist, virologist, immunologist.
Okay, you wear a lot of hats.
A lot of
Yeah.
You're all I have to wear hats to cover my
all the ologies, all the hats.
Yes.
That should be your tagline, by the way.
Okay.
All right. With that, now that we have pigeonholed Andrew into a very specific set of ologies, I think
all the ologies. You didn't pigeonhole me at all.
Only ologies.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all the time we have. Thank you guys so much for joining me again, and for all your insights into this conference. Before we go, can you share with us where the viewers might be able to reach you if they have questions about the meeting, or Lauren's like already ready, or the fellowship, or just anything at all? We'll go Lauren, Andrew, and then Justin.
So I'm holding up my Twitter handle. I'm also on Facebook, but not very often. So Twitter is the best way.
This is my Twitter handle as well. I'm not on Facebook except for this. So
I guess I'm the odd one out. I'm not on social media, and I'm rarely on Facebook.
So you can't talk to him. He's very
You'll never see him again.
You can contact one of the others, and
we'll get it to you.
No, you can join the fellowship,
Yes.
and then you have access.
Yes.
That's how this works.
that's the other expo event I was at, the AAAS booth and the
Yeah.
STPF fellowship booth.
that was exciting.
If you're watching and you are here, you should stop by. They have candy. You can find me on Twitter at, I don't know if you can see this, at attrition, spelled the way it sounds mostly. If you want more information about AAAS, you can go to AAAS.org. For more information about the meeting, you can go to the Facebook page, which is literally AAAS 2019 meeting, or find us on Twitter at AAAS Meetings, MEETINGS. Join us right here tomorrow for our very last wrap-up, where we have two fellows, both first years, joining us. We'll have more updates about science and the fellowship and all of the other cool things that have been happening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have a great night. Bye.
Thanks.